Hello? If you're here, you're probably looking for relief from anxiety or that nervousness that sometimes seems difficult to control. Before we begin, I want to invite you to take a very simple break with me. This will help your body and mind become more present, lighter. Shall we? First, find a comfortable position. You can sit or even lie down if you prefer. Now, close your eyes, and let's bring your attention to your breathing. Inhale deeply through your nose, filling your lungs, and exhale slowly through your mouth, releasing all tension. Let's repeat together 2 more times. Inhale and exhale. Once more, inhale and release. Very good. If you want, you can gently stretch your neck, relax your shoulders, loosen the muscles in your hands. The important thing is that you've already taken the first step toward calming down. And now, how about we understand together how anxiety affects older people, especially in old age? I'll tell you a story that really resonated with me. I discovered a secret about anxiety that completely transformed the lives of a couple who came to my office a few months ago. She was 62, he was 65, and they had been carrying on a family tradition that felt more like a burden than a blessing. The family had always had the custom of gathering on Sundays at the home of the matriarch, their 89-year-old grandmother. It was a beautiful tradition, but it was becoming a source of intense anxiety for the couple. Every weekend brought the same anguish, that feeling in their chest, their racing heart, the insomnia from the night before. When I heard this, I immediately recognized a pattern I often see in people over 60. Anxiety doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It feeds on situations that should bring us joy, but which our nervous system interprets as threats. What struck me most about their story was how a completely natural solution, based on something their own grandmother had been doing unknowingly decades ago, drastically reduced their anxiety symptoms in just 2 days. It wasn't medication, it wasn't complicated techniques. It was something so simple that they initially doubted it would work. The neuroscience behind this discovery is fascinating. When we apply specific stimuli to the parasympathetic nervous system of older adults, we can activate calming responses that remain active for hours, sometimes entire days. If you feel like anxiety is stealing precious moments from your life, if you notice that situations that were once pleasurable now cause discomfort, or if you simply want a natural alternative to deal with these feelings, say yes in the comments. I want to know how many people are going through this and need this information. When Maria and João entered my office, she held his hand tightly, as if preparing for battle. He looked at the floor, clearly uncomfortable. It was the first time they had sought help for something they considered age-related. Maria told me that on Sundays, since they were married 40 years ago, they had always visited his family. It was a sacred ritual, a tradition that united generations. But in the last 2 years, this visit had become a nightmare. By Friday, she was already feeling a tightness in her chest. On Saturday, she couldn't sleep well. By Sunday morning, she was nauseous. João didn't understand what was happening. He said she always loved these meetings, that she was the first to arrive and the last to leave. Now she was making excuses not to go, faking a headache, and creating non-existent commitments. What they didn't know is that the mature brain processes social stress differently. After 60, situations involving many people, simultaneous conversations, and family expectations can tax our nervous systems in ways they didn't before. The solution we discovered together came from a curious observation. Maria mentioned that João's grandmother, the family matriarch, always arrived at gatherings with a basket of homemade bread. She spent hours in the kitchen making those loaves, and Maria remembered how the whole house would smell, how everyone would calm down when they smelled that aroma. That's when everything began to make sense. The answer lay in what that 89-year-old woman was doing instinctively, unaware that she was applying one of the most powerful techniques for regulating the nervous system. After just 2 days of applying this discovery, Maria was able to sleep well on Saturday nights again. On the third Sunday, she attended church without anxiety for the first time in 2 years. She called me the following Monday. Her voice completely changed, telling me how she was able to enjoy every moment with her family, how present and peaceful she felt throughout the afternoon. The most impressive thing was seeing how this transformation affected not only Maria, but the entire family dynamic. João told me he hadn't seen his wife so relaxed in years, and that even he felt calmer on Sundays. The first thing I explained to Maria and João was how smell has a direct connection to the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotions and memories. When we smell something familiar and comforting, like the aroma of homemade bread, our brain automatically accesses memories of safety and well-being. The technique we developed together, I call the family olfactory anchor. It's surprisingly simple, yet incredibly powerful. Maria started making homemade bread on Friday afternoons, just like João's grandmother did. But it wasn't just about making bread. It was about creating a preparation ritual that calmed her nervous system. While kneading the dough, Maria practiced rhythmic breathing. She inhaled for 4 counts while kneading, held for 2, and exhaled for 6. This specific pattern activates the vagus nerve, which is primarily responsible for triggering our relaxation response. The aroma that wafted through the house as the dough rose and baked served as a signal to her brain that everything was okay, that she was safe. That Sunday would be a good day. After just 1 afternoon of preparation, Maria already felt a significant shift in her emotional state. But the real magic happened on Saturday morning. Maria would wake to the lingering aroma of bread still lingering in the house. This familiar scent created an immediate sense of calm, as if she were being embraced by a comforting memory. The second technique stemmed from another observation about João's grandmother. She always carried a small embroidered towel to cover her bread basket. Maria began using a similar towel, but with a specific purpose. She sprinkled a few drops of lavender essential oil on the towel on Friday night. On Saturday mornings, when she woke up anxious, Maria would grab this towel and breathe deeply. The mature brain responds exceptionally well to these combined sensory triggers. The smell of lavender, mixed with the memory of bread, created a powerful association of tranquility. While breathing with the towel, Maria performed a technique I call ancestral visualization. She imagined all the women in her family who came before her, preparing food with love and care. This connection to her family roots strengthened her sense of belonging and reduced social anxiety. The third discovery was about perfect timing. We observed that Maria was most anxious between 6 and 8 a.m. on Sunday mornings. That's when she applied the comforting touch technique. She warmed her hands by rubbing them together for 30 seconds, then placed one hand on her heart and the other on her abdomen. As she held her hands in this position, she mentally repeated a phrase we'd created together, based on the family tradition that had so haunted her, but now transformed into strength. It was a simple phrase, but it reconnected her with the loving purpose of those encounters. What amazes me about neuroscience is how we can reprogram anxiety responses using elements that are already part of our lives. With Maria and João, we discovered that the most profound transformation occurred when we combined multiple techniques in sequence, creating what I call the Serene Sunday Protocol. The fourth technique came about when Maria mentioned that she always woke up very early on Sundays, around 5 a.m., with her heart racing. Instead of trying to go back to sleep and dwelling on anxious thoughts, she began practicing the inner dawn walk. This technique took advantage of the fact that the mature brain processes information differently in the early hours of the day. Maria walked around the house for exactly 12 minutes, stepping consciously, feeling the texture of the floor under her feet. With each step, she counted a blessing related to the family she would meet that day. Physical movement combined with specific gratitude creates an impressive neurological cascade. Walking releases natural endorphins, while focusing on the positive aspects of family gatherings reconditions the brain to associate Sunday with joy rather than threat. During these morning walks, Maria also applied the 8-count breathing technique. It was a breathing pattern we learned by observing how Joan's grandmother breathed when she was cooking with absolute tranquility. She would inhale for 8 slow counts, hold for 4, exhale for 8, and pause for 4. This specific rhythm synchronizes with the resting heart rate and deeply activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Maria practiced this breathing throughout her walk, and the result was a feeling of centering that lasted for hours. The 5th technique was an accidental discovery that became fundamental. Maria was preparing chamomile tea on Sunday morning when she noticed how the simple act of holding the warm cup between her hands calmed her. We then developed the sacred cup ritual. Every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. sharp, Maria would prepare tea using the same cup that had belonged to her own grandmother. But it wasn't just about drinking the tea, it was about creating a moment of deep connection with herself. She would hold the cup with both hands, feel the warmth seeping through her palms, and inhale the aromatic steam. As she sipped her tea slowly, sip by sip, Maria practiced what I call gustatory meditation. She focused completely on the sensations on her tongue, the temperature, the taste, the texture. This mindfulness of the present completely interrupts the cycles of anxious thinking about the future. The brain cannot process anticipatory anxiety when it is fully absorbed in present moment sensory experiences. This is one of the most important discoveries in neuroscience applied to the treatment of anxiety in older adults. The 6th technique connected Maria directly to her family heritage in a completely new way. She began writing short thank you notes to different family members she would meet that Sunday, not to hand them out, but as an exercise in emotional reconnection. Handwriting activates specific areas of the brain related to empathy and social connection. When Maria wrote about qualities she admired in her brother-in-law or about fond memories with her mother-in-law, her brain literally shifted from threat mode to connection mode. The most profound transformation happened when Maria discovered how to use her own voice as a healing tool. During one of our conversations, she mentioned that her grandmother always hummed softly while cooking. That's when the ancestral humming technique was born. Maria began humming melodies she remembered from her childhood as she got ready for Sunday get-togethers. The fascinating thing is that it didn't have to be a specific song, just a soft melodic sound vibrating in her chest. This vibration directly stimulates the vagus nerve, creating an instant calming response. Neuroscience explains that when we hum or make soft vocal sounds, we activate specific throat muscles that are connected to the emotional regulation system. Maria did this for 5 minutes while choosing her outfit, and the effect lasted for hours. Joan also benefited from this technique in unexpected ways. He began humming along with Maria, and they discovered that creating these sounds together strengthened their connection and prepared them as a united couple for family gatherings. The 7th technique arose from Maria's need for something physical to hold when she felt anxiety rising during meetings. We developed what I call the family anchoring object. Maria chose a small fabric bag she sewed specifically for this purpose. Inside, she placed a small portion of the flour she used to make bread, some dried lavender leaves, and a small piece of cloth from Joan's grandmother's towel. This object held all the sensory anchors we had developed. When she felt anxious during dates, Maria would discreetly hold the sachet in her pocket and take 3 deep breaths. The familiar scent combined with the familiar texture acted like a reset button for her nervous system. The most impressive thing was how quickly it worked. In less than a minute, Maria was able to return to a calm state and rejoin conversations with genuine presence. The final technique was what we consider our greatest discovery. Maria learned the early farewell technique. An hour before leaving family gatherings, she would mentally say goodbye to each person present, silently thanking them for a specific moment they had shared that day. This practice completely transformed how she experienced the final hours of her visit. Instead of anxiously waiting to leave, she was able to enjoy every last moment, knowing she had already internally honored each relationship. If you've made it this far, it means you truly want this transformation. Click the bell to subscribe to the channel because I have several other discoveries about how our mature mind can be our greatest ally in combating anxiety. Don't miss this information that can completely change your experience of life after 60. The combination of these 7 techniques created a new way of experiencing Sundays for Maria and João. What was once a source of suffering became a source of joy and family connection again. And all this using only natural elements that already existed in their lives. 3 months after our first consultation, Maria brought me a discovery that completely changed my understanding of how anxiety works in the mature brain. She noticed that when she applied all the techniques in sequence, it wasn't just her Sunday anxiety that improved, but her mood throughout the week. The neuroscience behind this observation is extraordinary. When we establish consistent emotional regulation rituals, we create what researchers call a neurological resilience reserve. It's as if the brain creates a savings account of calm that can be accessed in times of need. Maria discovered that Wednesdays, which were once days of anticipation for the following Sunday, now became days of positive expectation. She began using Wednesdays to mentally prepare her weekend rituals, and this created a sense of control and empowerment that extended to all areas of her life. What impressed me most was how João also transformed through the process. He began actively participating in Maria's rituals, not out of obligation, but because he realized how they strengthened their relationship. We found that when mature couples practice emotional regulation techniques together, the effect is exponentially multiplied. João developed his own version of the 8-count breathing technique. He practiced it in the car on the way to family gatherings, while Maria applied her techniques at home. By the time they reached their destination, they were both in a state of synchronized calm that the whole family could sense. João's family began to notice the change. The matriarch herself, his 89-year-old grandmother, commented on how Maria seemed more present and radiant at gatherings. Unbeknownst to her, Maria was positively influencing the entire family dynamic through her own emotional regulation. This led me to deeply reflect on how our emotional stability after 60 affects not only our quality of life, but also the people around us. When a mature person can manage their anxiety naturally, they become an anchor of calm for their entire network of relationships. If these discoveries resonate with you, and if you recognize similar situations in your own life, please share this video with someone who could benefit from this information. Often, the person who needs these techniques most is right next to us, but doesn't know that natural solutions are so readily available. 6 months later, Maria sent me a message I'll never forget. She had taught the techniques to her own 78-year-old mother, who had avoided family gatherings for years because of social anxiety. The transformation was so significant that 3 generations of women in the family now practice these rituals together. What we've discovered is that these natural techniques create a ripple effect. When one family member manages to regulate their anxiety in a healthy way, they unconsciously give permission for others to seek that tranquility as well. It's as if breaking a silent pattern of suffering that sometimes passes from generation to generation. Maria's mother adapted the techniques to her own reality. Instead of baking bread, she began preparing special teas on Friday afternoons. Instead of humming, she began quietly praying old melodies she learned as a child. The important thing was not to copy exactly, but to find elements that resonated with her own family history. Recent studies show that when mature people find coping strategies that honor their family traditions, their effectiveness increases by up to 40%. Our brains respond better to solutions that make sense within our cultural and emotional context. Maria's granddaughter, a 25-year-old who has always suffered from social anxiety, also began using adapted versions of the techniques. She found that holding a small, meaningful object in her pocket during challenging social situations helped her stay centered. 3 generations, 3 different ways of applying the same fundamental neurological principles. This made me realize something fundamental about anxiety in mature people. It's often not just our own, it's a familiar pattern we carry without realizing it. When we can break this pattern within ourselves, we unlock not only our own capacity to live fully, but also offer a new path to those we love. Joan told me that now he and Maria are seen by the family as the most relaxed and present couple at gatherings. Other relatives began to ask what their secret was, how they managed to always be so serene and genuinely enjoy their time together. The answer Maria always gives is simple. She learned to honor her family heritage in a way that nourishes rather than depletes. She transformed traditions that had become burdens into rituals that strengthen her. If you want to make this transformation in your own life, if you want to be the person in your family who breaks anxiety patterns and creates new paths to tranquility, make a commitment to yourself now. Over the next 7 days, choose a situation that typically triggers anxiety and apply at least 2 of these techniques. Then come back here in the comments and share your experience. Today you discovered that anxiety after 60 doesn't have to be accepted as inevitable. Through the story of Maria and Joan, we saw how it's possible to transform situations that cause suffering into opportunities for connection and personal growth. The 7 techniques I've shared with you have a solid scientific basis, but their true power comes from honoring their history, traditions, and accumulated wisdom. You don't need to become a different person to overcome anxiety. You just need to rediscover the resources you already possess. The familiar olfactory anchor connects you with memories of safety. The 8-count breath regulates your nervous system. The inner dawn walk transforms morning anxiety into gratitude. The sacred cup ritual creates moments of full presence. The ancestral humming uses your own voice as medicine. The grounding object offers discreet support in challenging moments. The early farewell transforms how you experience each encounter. These aren't just techniques, they're invitations to rediscover your natural ability to create calm amidst chaos. They're ways to honor who you've become and use this maturity as your greatest strength. Remember, you've spent decades accumulating experiences, overcoming challenges, and creating meaningful relationships. This same strength that brought you this far can transform any anxiety into an opportunity for growth. If this video touched your heart, if you recognized your own story in the experiences I shared, join this community of mature people who have chosen to live more peacefully. Click subscribe, turn on notifications, and share in the comments which technique resonated most with you in your current situation. I have many other discoveries about how our mature mind can be our greatest ally. In the next video, I'll talk about how to transform anxiety-related insomnia into restful nights of sleep using all-natural methods specifically tested on people over 60. Until then, remember, your age isn't a limitation, it's an advantage. Use it to your advantage.